Mr. Speaker, today I introduce the 2026 budget for Parliament's consideration, my 7th annual budget, or 12th budget including supplementaries, that I've had the honour again to present to this House. On the 50th anniversary of our independence, it is important to put the 2026 budget into a broader context of our nation's past and future. We must learn some painful lessons from our past, and with the wisdom from the past, let us ensure our budgets provide the targeted resources that can inspire our future. Security with growth through our 2026 budget. Mr. Speaker, first, the high-level facts of the 2026 budget. A budget with 30,913 million in expenditures. A budget revenues that will total 29,306 million kina. Mr. Speaker, these are big numbers and are once again record budget figures. However, we do need to keep these numbers in perspective. But even these record levels of expenditure are less, much less, than the needs of our people. The 30.9 billion kina in expenditure represents only 2,882 kina per person in PNG, based on an estimated 2026 population of 10.7 million kina. Across our budget, this is actually only 430 kina per person for all our education expenditure, only 268 kina per person for health, only 219 kina per person for all of our police, defence and court systems, and less than 200 kina per person for all of our roads, wharves and airports. Clearly, still just not enough. We cannot fix this shortage of development funds in just 1 year. We need more revenues. We do not want to increase taxes. In 2026, good progress is being made to lift our revenues. We have been working hard, very hard, through better policies such as our new dividends policy endorsed by Cabinet midway through the year, compelling the Kumals to pay more, and through a modernised and simplified new Income Tax Assessment Act. These policies have been supported by increased operational funding support for IRC, which has increased from 102 million kina in 2024 to 144 million kina in 2026. And customs, with a budget increasing from 123 million kina in 2024 to 129 million in 2026. In 2026, our domestic revenues are expected to be 18.8% of GDP. This is higher than our revenue target of 17.9% by 2027, set out in our medium-term revenue strategy. That's good news. We are now exceeding our revenue targets, but still not enough to meet the legitimate needs of our peoples. securing growth, security with growth through budget repair, some comparisons. Mr. Speaker, the difference between this record level of revenues and this is still inadequate level of budget expenditures is a deficit of 1,607 million kina. We are still spending 150 kina more per person than our revenues. We agree with those opposite who say that this is too much. This is why we are targeting a budget surplus by 2027, so that finally we return to the position where our incomes cover our expenditures. But for those opposite, you should never forget that this 150 kina per person deficit is better, much better than the 520 kina per person deficit we inherited from the other guy. A budget deficit per person 250% higher under the other guy than in the 2026 budget. And this high deficit figure passed on to us in 2019 as confirmed by the due diligence work confirmed by our international partners, including the IMF, to unearth his fake budgets. This high deficit was imposed on our people despite the expected boom of the PNG LNG project coming on stream in 2014. The other guy wasted and misused the expected benefits of this largest resource project in our history. The record is clear. In the 2015 mid-year budget update, the MAIFO, the other guy, and in case anyone's forgotten, the member for Yalabu Pangia, was so economically irresponsible that it was estimated the budget deficit would increase from 4.4% to 9.4% of GDP, or 4,817 million kina, a 2,272 million kina blowout in 2015 due to poor and incompetent economic management. And some of you on the other side want him back. You gotta be joking. In contrast, the 2025 MAIFO indicates no change in the budget deficit. The 2026 budget shows the budget deficit will nearly halve to just 1.1% of GDP, on track for a targeted surplus in 2027. In contrast to the earlier years, through fiscal discipline and, more importantly, political stability, the budget deficit has fallen dramatically from 8.9% of GDP in 2020 down to just 1.1% in 2026. Our debt is now growing much slower than our economy. This means that our debt to GDP ratio will drop significantly from 48.4% in 2025 to 45.5% in 2026 and expected to fall to 42% in 2027. All of this budget repair and falling debt ratios is occurring while PNG is benefiting from record rates of non-resource economic growth and inflation well below historic levels. Mr. Speaker, there is no need for a so-called blame game, although he has much to be ashamed about through his appalling economic mismanagement and gyaman. Throwing away the benefits of Grand Chief Somari's management for the first 2 years, then 5 years of disastrous economic management that destroyed living standards, lost tens of thousands of jobs, and increased our debt fourfold, funded by expensive overseas commercial borrowings. The Marape Rosso government is very willing to do a comparison in performance between the untrustworthy economic experiences from 2013 to 2018 compared to the post-COVID economic experience from 2021 to 2026. Security with growth through support for our police and judiciary. Mr. Speaker, the 2026 budget builds on the strong support provided by the 2025 budget to our law and justice sector. Out on the front line, it is our police who face the challenges of tribal conflict, of domestic violence, of breaking the laws of our land. The recent battles at the University of Goroka and violence in and around the Porgera mine are a reminder of the complexity of these problems. The causes are complex, but everyone agrees that part of the solution is that there must be more police in PNG. The 2026 budget provides an overall increase of 9.6% in the law and justice sector, building on the 9.5% increase last year. Steady increases that will need to continue for some years yet. Some highlights of these increases are as follows. Further investments in our police of 761 million kina, including a 34% increase in goods and services funding to cover operational costs such as fuel, and with funding for wages increasing by 19% over the last 2 years as part of supporting a growth to 10,000 police by 2030. Our judiciary receives a further 19% increase in operating costs, lifting the total funding increase since 2024 to a 59% increase in operating costs. Our defence forces receive a 29% increase in their goods and services. Our priority areas, tracking line of police fuel, defence catering, court cases, receives a 42% increase from 112 million to 159 million kina. Our corrective services receive a 10.6% increase in operating funding in 2026. Our Office of Public Prosecutor receives a 60% increase in operating costs over 2 years. Our magisterial services receive a 36% increase over 2 years. Our Ombudsman Commission receives a 15.2% increase over 2 years, and our Independent Commission Against Corruption with a 34.5% increase in funding over the last 2 years to 54.1 million kina. And LLG leaders' allowances supporting a key part of community-level dispute resolution increases by 47% from 49 to 72 million kina. These are strong levels of increased support. In addition, 10 million has been allocated to support activities for dealing with money laundering and counter-terrorism funding. These increases demonstrate the Marape Rosso government stands with our police, with our defence forces, with our judges and magistrates and public prosecutors and corruption fighters, all to improve security and peace in our country. And with improved security, we know the prospects for growth are so much stronger. Security with growth through the agriculture sector. Mr. Speaker, the Marape Rosso government is looking for inclusive growth, growth that lifts income security and benefits everyone around the country. A key part of this is greater investments in our agriculture sector. This includes a 16.6% increase for the Department of Agriculture operating costs, a 34.8% increase for the PNG Oil Palm Industry Corporation, a 14% increase for the National Agriculture Research Institute, a 34.6% increase in operating funds for the National Agriculture Quarantine and Inspection Authority, and over the last 2 years, a 30.7% increase in operational funding to the Cocoa Board. Security with growth through capital investments. Mr. Speaker, Marape Rosso is the infrastructure government. The 2026 budget has a record public investment program of 7,697 million kina. This is 277% higher than the miserable 2,041 million invested in the PIP in 2018 by the other guy. These are not just figures in a budget book. Month after month, we see images of the dancing and joy that comes when a new road goes into an area where there was no road before. This is development that is transforming lives all across Papua New Guinea. PNG Connect remains our signature program, guiding these investments. Yes, we're responding to concerns about some parts of the program through a comprehensive audit, but the concrete benefits are clear on the ground. The 2026 budget provides over 1.7 billion kina through the Department of Works to support the historic PNG Connect program. Security with growth through human capital investments. Mr. Speaker, just as we support investments in physical capital, we also support investments in human capital through our health and education sectors. The 2026 budget continues our record of strong education investments with an increase in the education sector of 11.3% to 4,935 million kina. This funding includes a 251 million increase or 11% in teachers' salaries, lifting spending to 2,532 million kina in 2026, aimed at preventing further teachers' salary overruns. In addition, there is a 45 million increase in government tuition fee subsidy and project fee support from 860 million to 905 million kina. For TESAS and HELP, there is an increase from 152 million to 157 million kina. In the health sector, there is a 15.8% increase to 3,205 million kina, and this includes an 88 million in increase for our provincial health authorities, including POM General to 1,476 million kina. There is a 27 million kina increase in medical supplies from 240 million to 267 million kina. There are also major increases for vaccines of 73%, of malaria and TB and other key drugs of over 40%. Church and Catholic health services, which provide an estimated half of all health services to our rural people, increases by 22% or 46.3 million kina to 259 million kina. Security with growth through support for provinces. Mr. Speaker, once again, our provinces are greatly benefiting from our decentralized funding arrangements. This includes a 44% increase in functional grants over the last 2 years, from 535 million kina to 770 million kina. Provincial funding also includes a 30% increase in GST and bookmakers' tax distributions from 980 million in 2024 to 1,274 million next year. Provinces also benefit greatly from the increased funding to our provincial health authorities and increased funding provided for teachers and the GTFS scheme. Security with economic growth. Mr. Speaker, inclusive economic growth is key to income security, more job security and more revenues to fund larger budgets. During COVID-19, we protected the budget, protected the economy, and we are now seeing the benefits of such a policy. The economy is expected to exceed 145 billion kina next year. This is 12 billion kina higher than the 133 billion economy in 2025. Our 2026 economy will be over 80% higher than the 79 billion economy in 2018 we inherited. We are well on target for a 200 billion economy by 2030, a 300 billion economy by 2035, and a kina 1 trillion economy by 2048. As significant as these very large increases in nominal GDP are, the real growth figures are in our non-resource economy. Real non-resource growth per capita is the best measure in PNG for tracking movements in living standards. The non-resource sector accounts for 72% of the economy and is the part of the economy which provides livelihoods to most of our people, such as agriculture, manufacturing, finance, transport, retail, and wholesale businesses, hospitality, utilities, and even government. From 2021 to 2026, PNG is forecast to benefit from its longest run of sustained real growth in a non-resource economy of over 4% in its history. Specifically, PNG has had real non-resource growth, so taking out the impacts of inflation, of 4.2% in 2021, 5.9% in 2022, 4.7% in 2023, 4.5% in 2024, 4.6% in 2025, and 4.5% projected next year. This sustained 6 years of non-resource real growth of 4% is now 2 years longer than any other period in PNG's history. All these rates are higher than PNG's population growth rate, now re-estimated by the census of 2.6%, meaning we are finally seeing sustained improvements in living standards, but still a long way to go. Using the updated census population figures, we now expect to climb out of the deep economic hole left by the other guy's economic mismanagement by the end of 2025. And here's an even scarier thought. If the other guy sitting next to him even gets his hands on the bank account, PNG would go broke before the year even ended. Don't trust two of them. More specifically, living standards dropped from an average of 8,000 877 kina per person in 2014, down to just 8,025 by 2019, a fall of 10.6% in real living standards. In 2025, we now expect living standards to rise to 8,949 million kina, finally back above 2014 levels, and in 2026 to rise further to 9,137 kina. They're just the facts. PNG now adopts the international standard in budgeting of not including any new projects in our growth or revenue forecasts until the final investment decision or FID is made, so there is a real upside looking forward with our budget. Despite this very strong growth, PNG's inflation rate has remained well below historical levels in the last 2 years, including a historic low of 0.6% in 2024. And the latest June quarter of 2025 outcome of minus 2.2%. In 2026, we expect the inflation rate to be 4.2%, still well below our historic average of 6% and lower than 5% if we didn't extend the GST relief package. Along with this growth, we are seeing an increase in the formal jobs sector with a 2.6% increase in the year to June 2025. We know that many more jobs are being created in rural areas linked to the strong prices of agricultural commodities such as coffee and cocoa, but we do not have a good way to measure this broader jobs growth. What we do know, however, is that this jobs growth is much, much better than the fall in employment from 300,649 non-public sector jobs in 2013 down to 271,200 in 2018, a loss of nearly 30,000 jobs by the other guy. Not a blame game, just reminding the House, the better guy is steering the ship. The security with growth through assisting families with cost of living pressures. Mr. Speaker, the Marape Rosso government understands families are still struggling with cost of living pressures. Unlike previous governments, we have been delivering relief to our families. Mr. Speaker, the 2026 budget includes a 1,010 million household assistance package. When members opposite ask, where does the money go? The answer is that it goes into initiatives such as this to support our families. The main component of this household support package is the full year costing of the zero rating for 13 essential products. This No More GST campaign has been extended to the end of 2026. The 13 products are rice, flour, tinned fish, tinned meat, chicken, biscuits, noodles, tea, coffee, cooking oils, and health-related products of soap, women's hygiene products, and baby diapers. Let us not forget the opposition opposed these GST cuts. Let's not forget that. They argued against them in their response to the 2025 budget. They simply do not understand the needs of struggling families in our country. This year's household assistance package also continues to provide 175 million kina for school project fee subsidies, which provides savings between 60 and 220 kina per student, depending on the level of schooling they are attending. The permanent increase in the tax-free threshold to 20,000 kina provides savings of up to 63 kina per fortnight for most income earners on 20,000 kina and above per annum. For first home buyers, the stamp duty exemption has in 2026, much less than the estimated growth in revenues of 15.3%. This is the basis for responsible budget repair. The budget deficit falls from 8.9% of GDP back in 2020 down to just 1.1% next year. Some thought that returning to a surplus could not be achieved. Many doubted, but we're now 88% of the way down the fiscal path. Debt to GDP falls from 48.4% to 45.5%. Revenues have exceeded 17.9% of GDP target 1 year earlier. Record levels of sustained non-resource growth continue, finally lifting living standards out of the deep hole this government inherited in 2018. We are supporting struggling families with a $1,010 million relief package. The 2025 budget is yet another demonstration of the Marape Rosso government's economic credibility. Mr. Speaker, I commend the 2026 budget to the Parliament. Thank you.